Today's topic is taking forever. Welcome to TableScraps, short discussions about board, card, and tabletop gaming submitted by the viewing audience and discussed with the viewing audience. Hey there everybody, and welcome back to another episode of TableScraps, the show here where we discuss a topic about board, card, and tabletop games with the live streaming YouTube audience. And today I have another live audience member who's going to be joining me here to discuss the topic, and that person is Mr. Marty Cannell of the Rolling Dice and Taking Names podcast. Thank you for joining us, Marty.
Hey, Chaz. How's the weather in Oregon?
The weather in Oregon is fantabulous. And,
Great.
You know, the only thing that would make it better is if you and Trevon were here to enjoy it with me. All right.
I wish we were.
Marty, we are going to discuss a topic related to tabletop gaming that was submitted by the viewing audience, and then we're going to turn it over to the YouTube streaming audience to chat with them about it a little bit more. And today's topic is this one from Sakura Draven, who asks, how do you feel about games that can run a long time, like 3 or more hours?
I am A-okay with it if the game is fun. And I know that is such a blah answer, but it's
Yes,
true.
it is.
So one of the recent games I played that was more than that was a Game of Thrones, the second edition with the expansion Mother of Dragons. And I had an amazing time. But that's a game that you're super engaged with the players and the game for 3 to 4 hours. So the time kind of flew. I feel that way. Mansions of Madness, second edition, can have some scenarios that run long. A-okay with that. But then other games, if it gets a little long in the tooth and I get tired of playing, then I wear out pretty quickly. The example of that was, it's been a couple years since I played it, but Twilight Imperium, the previous edition, that game, honestly, about 4 or 5 hours, I was like done. I was like, somebody just please win this game. I became disengaged from the game. I still played, but like when it wasn't my turn, I was like, oh my gosh, just somebody please win and hurry up and win. So it all depends on the game, and that's a horrible answer for this type of question, but that's exactly what it is for me.
Okay. That's funny because I rarely get to play a 3+ hour game. It's kind of a rare treat for me. And the most recent game like that I've been able to play actually was Twilight Imperium 4th edition. And between learning the rules and playing the game, we played that game for 9 hours. And we still didn't get done. We set a hard stop time limit. I think we got to the 8th of 10 rounds. It kind of, I don't want to say flew by, but the game, it was, we were engaged enough, at least I was engaged enough that it went by okay. I played a game of the original Android, I think. Not Android Netrunner, but Android, the board game, which is really interesting. But about halfway through that game, which I think took like 6 hours, again, including the learning time and everything, about halfway through I realized that there was, even if I played optimal moves, there was no way I could even get close to winning. So I was like, the whole second half of that game for like 3 hours or so, I just went through the motions on my turn. I move here, I do this. I move here, I do this. And tried to, keep it energetic and put on a brave face. But inside I was just like, pulling levers and stuff.
Now, I've had that experience too, where if I felt like I was just out of the game, like there's no way I could win, then I kind of zone out. I really, really, really enjoy games that have a built-in clock. Even if a game is long, if there's some element of the game that eventually will wind down and the game will end, I love that because then I know there's no way that game can just continue perpetually. So anytime that I see a game that's 2 hours, 3 hours plus, and I scan through the rules and look for winning conditions, and one of them is, there's something that's going to time out, I'm all in.
The other side of this coin to me is games that shouldn't take that long but do. I have tried to enjoy Istanbul, but the very first time I played it, now how long should that game take?
I didn't think that was a very last. Oh my God, it's been years since I played. A couple hours, maybe.
Yeah. My first game of Istanbul was over 3 hours long.
No. Yeah,
yes.
that's bad.
Yeah, and the game just killed it for me because I wake up cold sweats in the middle of the night having flashbacks, and the worst part is
that's not because of Istanbul. That's something else. But go ahead.
Well, it could have really, really long, drawn out flashbacks, which makes it even worse. So, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah. So I mean, when you have a game that shouldn't be that long, but for some reason it turned AP analysis paralysis or something like that, lots of interruptions perhaps, does that affect your enjoyment of the game?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it can. And the problem is I know that I might be prone to the analysis paralysis and hurting the experience for others. And then I get frustrated at myself because I feel like then everybody's watching me and wanting me to hurry up. But let me ask you, what do you think about I can't remember. Do you play RPGs? Because those can go 3 to 4 hours long. Are you okay with something like that?
See, that's a totally different animal. When I play an RPG, it's like we're sitting down to tell a story and have fun, and it's more of an event. It's not like we're playing a game that was designed to play in 45 minutes. So totally different. First off, with a suggestion from Christian, who says, I love long games just as much as a 30-minute one. I love Talisman, Twilight Imperium 4, and Battlestar Galactica. Oh, okay.
That's a good one.
I'm so glad that Christian mentioned Battlestar Galactica, because that is another example of what can happen with a long game. I waited like years, literally a couple of years, to have the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time to play Battlestar Galactica. And there was a local convention where there were 6 people or however many, full complement of people to play it, and I got to sit down and I got to play it. And everyone in that group played Battlestar Galactica with each other like every weekend. That's the same group. They played all the time. So I sat down to play this game, and I sat down and I watched one person take his turn, kind of talk, inside jokes, stuff, whatever, do things real quick, boom, 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 turns down. Next person, blah, 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 boom, 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 turns down. Next guy, boom, boom. It ended up where I sat there 4.5 hours, and I ended up watching everyone else play a game of Battlestar Galactica, and I was stuck there doing it. And so that type of experience, the people you play with can definitely affect how the game plays out. And when you get stuck in that situation, I mean, you are there for the long haul. Okay, let's move on to the next chat thing here from the person who is kabukikid, who says, my opinion is that games that are meant to be 3+ hours are great, but a 1.5 hour game that runs 3+ hours is not quite as fun.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's your Istanbul, right?
That's my Istanbul right there. We have a consensus here that short games that take forever, for some reason, not as fun. Mm-hmm. Now, what if there's a really long game that's supposed to be really long, but it's really fast? Do you think that would ruin it for you?
No. In fact, oh my gosh. Oh, I know, perfect one. So last week I went to Tantrum Con, who's run by Tantrum House, and I got to play Black Orchestra for the first time. That's a co-op game that was really big last year. First time I ever played it. Tony, my co-host on the podcast, had played it and said, Marty, you need to sit down and try this game. It's amazing. So I got to sit down with a couple people there, including like Richard Launius, who designed Arkham Horror. Oh, excuse me. Let me pick up that name I just dropped down here. There it is. All right, I got it. All right. So he taught the game, and it's one of those things where it runs like 7 rounds, so it has a clock built into it. And at the beginning of the game, people said, typically the game doesn't resolve or you don't win by like the 4th or 5th round. We won in round 2. It's almost like the setup of the game and the rules explanation took more than the game itself. And those who had played went, this just never happens. It's just things just happen to work out with the card draws and everything and the dice rolls to where we won almost instantly. And Tony was like upset, my co-host, because he was like, you didn't really experience the game at all. and that's where I felt like I was kind of jilted, because some of the people I was playing with, there's something about being able to, you get caught by the Gestapo and thrown into prison and you're interrogated. And one of my friends said that's just one of the best mechanics that he's seen in a game in a long time, and I never got to see it. So I do feel I was kind of jilted and want to play it again to see how that part of the game works. But it didn't deter from the experience, though. It just makes it feel like this game's not that hard. Big deal. I've won. I don't need to play again.
What was famous game designer Richard Lanius's opinion of that?
Who? Richard? Oh, hold on. Richard Lanius? Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
So he was stunned. He was the one that said, yeah, well, we've never won this quick before. So he was kind of shocked too. But it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt the experience, except that I felt like I lost out on seeing something in the game that I was told I should see.
That story you just gave is a really good example of that very type of scenario that can play out with games like that and why it can be good and bad. Let's go to the next comment, which could be good or bad. This one from Trevon, who says, as long as these games are played by appointment rather than spur of the moment, it's fine. I think,
good point.
Yeah. I mentioned that I rarely get to play really long games, and the reason I actually have Twilight Imperium and Android in my examples is because last year I actually set up with a local game group of friends a monthly or bi-monthly thing where we actually set up a certain day each month that we're going to play a game that we never get to play otherwise. And it's been these bigger, meatier games. So, and then we know it's going to happen, we're expecting it, and we don't mind as much. Let's continue on from with comment next from Halo, who says, I love long games. Emphasis mine. Specifically with people that are into it. Emphasis also mine. Twilight Imperium and Xayah are the longest games that I have played, especially if there is a player interaction and a theme. I'm glad that Halo mentioned Xayah as well. Xayah, I love Xayah Legends of a Drift system. But one time, the most recent time I played that, everyone else went off kind of eastward to explore the galaxy. And I said, well, forget this. I'm going to go westward. I'm going to see what's this way. So I went off by myself. And I pulled out, you have this stack of space tiles, and you pull out a random one, and you place it down as you're exploring space. And I drew empty space, and then empty space, and empty space. And literally, I had this long, I've never seen anything like it. There was this long line of tiles. Every tile that was a planet was over here, and I had this long line, and I got down to there was one tile left, and I got to it, and I turned it over, and it was a planet, but I ran out of resources, and I got stuck, right? And so I kind of just floated around next to the planet while everyone else was over here, and it made that Xayah game a very, very long, tedious experience, and it was my own fault in a way. Is there a game that you thought you wouldn't like its length, but then you ended up not minding once you started playing it?
No.
Okay. Moving on. Our next question. Our next question comes from Quan7UM Jack, who says, long games that have a legitimate way for a player to leave early are good. Oh, that's a really good point. Only game, as an example, that's coming to mind for me is Shadows over Camelot, which kind of is built to have people come in and leave.
Oh.
Is it what? Can you think of any other games where it's built into it, the game itself, for people to come and go?
During the actual game?
During the actual game.
No, I can't personally. I'm sure it's out there.
The next one from Cam, who says, do you think some game publishers list shorter times than what is realistic on their boxes because they fear the longer time will lead to less sales?
Ooh.
Fantastic.
Oh, so
question.
lying to the consumer, basically.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that happens?
It does seem like there are a lot of games. And the reason why this comes up is because whenever I sit down and play games with my wife, and she says, let me look at the box and see how long it takes. And if it says an hour, she said, all right, that's an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's like she just not assumes that whatever's written on the box isn't exactly right. Now, to be fair, you're also learning the rules and playing for the first time, etc. But, I mean, sure, I think the first game or two is probably always longer than what's listed on the box. I really do. I think once you get into it, and then you don't know, you assume that they're not including setup time. And so, setup could take a little bit of time, and then maybe teaching the rules to somebody. So it does tend to go longer than what's written on the box, unless just everybody knows exactly what they're doing. It's already set up, and you sit down and you play.
That's exactly what I think it is. I don't think it's the publishers being malicious in any way. I think it's that those times are based on their playtesting and their development. Games by people who designed the game or know the rules really well from playtesting. I think that's where those numbers usually come from. And it's kind of your best case scenario time limit. Next comment is from Axentroll, who says, I'd play long games if I and my friends had the time, but that rarely happens. And I think many of us actually are in that same boat. I think, like I gave the example that for those longer games, we actually had to create a specific schedule for them.
Yes, it's funny you say that because I have my game group here who has some long games we want to go back and experience again. I'd mentioned Game of Thrones. That was a special, all right, like 3 weeks from now, let's get this group of people together and play. Mare Nostrum, we want to get back to the table so bad because we all loved it. Forbidden Stars, we want to get back to the table so bad because everybody loved it. And I want to teach them StarCraft, which was the precursor to Forbidden Stars, because I want to play those two literally back to back to compare how they two are. But both games are 2 to 3 hours long. So yeah, I agree. You do it well. Where I am right now with wife, kids, everything, you do have to kind of plan. Everybody else has to plan to do it. That's why I just don't get to do it that often. But that's why also conventions are a great place to do it, because then you have, you're there just to play games. So it's a perfect time to bring out those longer games.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good environment for it.
It is a very good environment, Chaz.
You're making fun of me somehow, but I can't quite put my finger on how. So I'm going to continue on to a couple more questions here. The next one from B. Pike, who says, games that are 1.5 to 2 hours are more in my wheelhouse, but 3+ still doesn't bother me at all. They just require a little more scheduled planning with players. And I think that dovetails right into what we've already said there. And I think, so Axentroll or anyone else that has problems with it, I think scheduling in advance is really the way to go, or to put yourself in the correct environment for that type of game.
Yeah.
All right. And our last question here is going to, or our last comment is going to come from Christian, who says, I think it also sometimes comes down to your background. Mine is from Warhammer 40K, Axis and Allies, so I love them just as much. But my wife came from Yahtzee, etc., so long games are not for her. Oh, very, very true. What it looks like that sparked some ideas in your dome there, little.
Well, no, I think no. I'm just sitting there thinking, Warhammer 40K can be a long game, and in fact, I'm one of those that used to love, or still love to play miniature games, but again. With games like 40K, Age of Sigmar, where you got large point armies, that basically large point armies means you got a lot of models on the board. There's a lot of models being moved around. Just takes a long time to play a game. That's why these newer games coming out from like Games Workshop, who are smaller skirmish games, like Chaz, you and I got to play Kill Team together, which is a lot fewer models, less to learn, simpler rules, and quicker time to play. And that game has taken off big time. And I think part of the reason is people now realize, oh, I don't have to commit 3 hours to a miniature game. Here's a nice miniature game that I can play, still get that miniature feel in an hour or less.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there might be variations of certain longer games that you can play that would fit into a more reasonable time frame that the co-players would be more apt to try, almost like a sampling, a taste, as it were. The Costco sample of gameplay. Marty, for anyone who may or may not be familiar with it, where can people find you on the intermost web?
If you want to check out our podcast, Rolling Dice and Taking Names, we have a website where you can go download the episodes at rolldicetakenames.com. Obviously, we're also on iTunes and Stitcher, etc. Or you can, if you want to chat with us, you can do so on Twitter at Dice and Names, Facebook. We're kind of, wherever Chaz is, we're there too. Actually, we're right in Chaz's basement right now. He doesn't even know it.
Where were you when I was cleaning my kitchen this morning?
Stayed in the basement, baby.
Fair enough. All right. And I'm Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise, and you can find me on the YouTube channel that you are watching right now. Until next time, I again have been Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise, the YouTube channel you're watching right now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again, hopefully more coherently, real soon.
I doubt it.
Have you had that experience where you find you just are sucked into a game, you realize, I have got to find a bail point. I have got to bail on this.
No.
Hey, Marty, we have a good rapport. Why don't you come join me? Okay, sure, I'll do that. That sounds fun. I have the power of editing. I can pester you now and then come off clean as a whistle later.
Do you ever go to Costco just to go there and eat? Just get all around and get the samples? Is that just me?
Yes, I